Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be hailing from. This is Red Hat Enterprise Linux Presents our Modernizing RHEL Management mini-series, episode number 2. I'm Eric, the IT Guy Hendricks, and joining me all the way from the Red Hat Insights BU is Mr. John Spinks.
Appreciate it, Eric. Looking forward to today's episode. We've got some new stuff, which it's always great to talk about new stuff.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So if you're just joining us, the last time we talked about some of the needful things. It wasn't the most thrilling of episodes, but it was kind of essential there to talk about how do you register, what is Insights, what are potential concerns or pitfalls that might come with using Insights. But we promised you a very demo-heavy mini-series here, so really excited about that. And that being said, this episode is nothing but demo because we're going to talk about using one of the one of the Red Hat Insights services, namely Image Builder, to build and deploy a new system. And so one of the things that we're going to do is the image that we build today is actually going to be featured in a lot of our episodes. So a lot of the decisions we make, from packages and services that we add to some of the configuration choices that we make today, are actually going to play later on in the series. So with that said, Mr. John, why don't you kick us off and tell us what we're looking at?
Sounds great. All right. I'm here on the main page of the hybrid cloud console. We talked about this a little bit last episode, but Insights is available right here, console.redhat.com. You log in using your Red Hat account credentials, your username and password, same thing that you would do to log a support case, download software, use those same credentials to log in. So I'm already here. I'm going to go up to the top, search for services. And actually, we're going to start with sources, because the first thing we really should do here is create a connection to, in this case, our public cloud, which is where I'm going to create my systems. I already have a source created, but I'm going to walk through the add source wizard so you can get a feel for what this looks like. Our whole goal here is to connect to one of these cloud providers. Today, we support AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, and Oracle Cloud. So you would select your cloud provider. I have AWS. It's just what I have access to. So I select that and click next. And then we're going to give it a name. Next. All right. When it comes to actually doing the configuration, you have a couple different options. We've got what we call an account authorization method, which you just provide your access key ID and your secret, and it handles all the configuration by itself. Or if you really want to go create all the things, you can go through the process of creating an IAM policy, a role, and an ARN. I want everything enabled, so I would use this account authorization method. You would put in your access key ID, which is about 12 digits, if I remember correctly, and your secret access key. Again, I already have one, so I'm totally making stuff up because I'm going to cancel at the end and click next. At this point, we're going to tell it what we need access to. Since I use that account authorization, it's going to give me access to anything that I select at this point. So cost management, mostly used on the OpenShift side. Launch images is what we're going to heavily use during this episode. And then the RHEL management. So this does 3 major things for us. This unlocks gold images if you're using that cloud provider. So any images that Red Hat creates and puts on that cloud provider, you can leverage them using your own subscription. If you're leveraging our subscription watch service, which we'll talk about later on, you will get a high precision subscription utilization. So we can show you hourly usage of your systems. And then auto registration. We talked a lot last episode about how you need to register a system with Insights, and you go in and you can manually do the Insights-client command, or you can leverage playbooks or satellite. If you have auto registration enabled, we will register the system for you, both through Insights and Subscription Manager. So you would click next, review the details, and click add. Again, I put in fake data because I already have one set up, so I'm going to hit cancel and exit. But this RHAWS is the one that I'm going to use today. You can see that I have cost management, RHEL management, and launch images all turned on, and this is already connected to my host. So that's the first thing I need to make all of this magic happen, is a source. The next thing that I'm going to leverage is an activation key. You may be familiar with activation keys if you're a Red Hat Satellite user. Typically, you would use these to leverage subscriptions or register your systems without having to type in a username and password, which is the same thing that we're going to do here today. So we're going to create an activation key. I'm going to call this AK Mini. We're going to select our workload. We can do latest release, which is what I'm going to select, or extended support will allow you to use EUS or the update for SAP. So I'm going to do latest release. You want to leverage system purpose as well. This really helps you with subscriptions later on. So I'm going to put Red Hat Enterprise Linux Server. I'm going to use a self-support SLA, but you could also do standard or premium. And then my usage in this case, we can put it as production or development test. I'm putting this in my production environment. So production. Click next and create. So I've created myself an activation key. I've created a source. The next thing I'm going to do is make an image. I already had this stuff set up, but I just kind of wanted to show you all the things in the background. So now I'm going to go into the images section here. The images is going to take about 12 minutes to create. So I created one this morning, but we're going to go through the exact same process. And then I'm going to use this one that you see sitting here already. So I'm going to leverage again AWS. Actually, let me cancel that. I'm going to show AWS. And then it's going to ask me here for my account ID and my region. That's because we have within Insights what we call preview features and functionality. So there's some newer features that are available to me. I'm going to close this wizard. I'm going to turn this preview mode on. You'll see this up here in the upper right-hand corner. If I turn this on, it's going to give me access to some features and capabilities that are in preview mode. They're not fully available, but they're there for you to use. So they're just not GA. If I click,
and I'd highly encourage folks to maybe not use it in production, but definitely in dev and test environments to use some of the preview mode features, provide some feedback. In fact, there's even a link there on the right side of the screen where you can provide feedback right from within the application. And what's different about Red Hat Insights versus something like Red Hat Enterprise Linux is that this is a service. It's something that gets updated on a very frequent basis, much more frequent than say the RHEL minor release cycle. And with it being Insights, it's not tied to that RHEL release cycle. So there's constantly new features. And in fact, I work very closely with our image builder team. And it's funny because every week or so I'll go in to spin up a new image, and there'll be a new breadcrumb or a new the Oracle Cloud was fairly new to me just a week ago or so at the time of recording. So there's constantly new features. They're constantly getting tweaked. So definitely use those preview features, at least for dev, and provide some feedback because we can very rapidly iterate on this.
I feel like every time I demo Insights, I see something new, and it's because it is delivered very, very quickly. You called out that feedback button. I want to dive into that for a quick second because some people may not know this. If you click this feedback button and do something like share feedback, and you're like, you put, hey, there's something misspelled. You say there's a misspelling on page and you submit this feedback, it actually creates a JIRA in the back end, and our product management team scrub these pretty much regularly. So the feedback that you give in product is actionable feedback that will lead to direct results. So please feel free to tap that feedback button and give us any feedback that you see. All right. So I turned preview mode on, and the reason that I did this, it may not look a whole lot different on this screen. I'm going to select RHEL 8, but when I click AWS and go next, what it's now able to do that's a preview mode feature is I'm able to pull in my source from the sources. I created that a moment ago. I don't have to retype my account ID or my region. I can just pull this information in for me. So that just makes it a lot easier if you're somebody that maybe you don't know all of this information. You've got one admin that's managing your AWS relationship, and all you want to do is build the image. You just pull this information in. You don't have to manually type it. So this is a nice enhancement. Again, currently in preview mode. I would expect that to land pretty shortly in the full GA release. So click next here. We did this activation key earlier. So that was AK Mini. I've got this set to automatically register and enable the advanced capabilities. So we're getting that registration key from our activation information. And if I scroll down here, this is self-support, this is production. So as I go to look at what subscription I'm using, the system purpose information helps lead to that. Click next here. I can use automatic partitioning, which is what I'm going to do, but you also have the option to manually configure partitions. So if you wanted to add home, opt, Etsy, whatever, go in here and add different volumes, or you need 100 gig for opt, you can absolutely go in here and make these changes yourself. I'm going to go back to automatic partitioning. Click next. All right, now we're going to create some packages and put packages here into this environment. So later on, I'm going to be using some features in this mini series, such as SCAP. So I'm going to put in these SCAP security guide. I also want OpenSCAP to go along with that. So OpenSCAP. I'm going to leverage Yara pattern matching when I talk about malware detection. So we'll add that in there. And it should be installed automatically, but I'm also going to use RHC, which is remote host configuration. And that also has a worker playbook that goes along with it. So I'll add both of those. And then along with this insight stuff, I also want a workload. Let's do Postgres. So I'll pop in Postgres server. Here we are. Add Postgres SQL server. So that's 6 items that I've added in here. You can go on in, you can add anything that you want, into this image. I've just gone ahead and picked a few things. I'll select next. You do have the option as well for custom repositories. You've got a place, you'll see the link right here, where you can go and manage the custom repositories. We've got EPEL added in by default, but if there was some other repo that you needed to add in that you're frequently putting on your systems, you can add those right into Image Builder and have that available to select. I'm not going to install EPEL on this machine, but I just wanted to show you that that was an option. So we're going to name this mini series RHEL 8. Oh, always forget. I need lowercase, mini series RHEL 8. We can review our settings here with our image output, our environments. One big thing to notice is when you create these images, you are creating it in Red Hat's account. So you have 14 days to take this image and copy it from the Red Hat account into your account. So that was highlighted earlier in the wizard. I wanted to highlight it here as well. If you've made any changes to your file system configuration, your repositories, they're all listed here. But when we're done, click Create Image. And my image is being created. You'll see it down here pending. I mentioned a few moments ago, takes 10 to 12 minutes last time I did this to create that image. So I did create one earlier today, pretty much the exact same settings that I've used. With a 30-minute episode, we just don't have time to wait for it to finish. So I'm going to click the launch button on this image that's ready to go. And then we're going to talk about actually launching this image. Eric, before I go on to the launch, any questions you have about this whole image builder thing? Pretty made sense, seem easy?
One of the things I fell in love with long ago about image builder is just how easy it is. And having worked with it for over 2 years now, it's just gotten more and more feature rich. And a quick shout out to Terry Bowling, who's hanging out in our chat. He is one of the product excuse me, one of the product managers that works on the image builder team. And so he's here available to answer some questions as well. But yeah, we're all about the cooking style show. So let's launch that image.
Before I launch it, to peel back the cover, I'm going to do a thing that you guys don't have to do. But I happen to have my AWS console open here. I'm just going to highlight that I currently have in North Virginia. I've got 13 instances running. So they all have names. So 13 instances. Hold on to that number. And what we're going to do is go over here and click this launch button. And we're going to walk through. So we should see that number increment here shortly. We've already got the account that's selected that's in the image. We've got the region in the image. I do have a launch template. This is an AWS launch template that's set up. It uses the security group that I prefer in AWS. It gives it some tags that I prefer, all of those kind of things when I create my image in AWS. I already have this template created. And then you can choose an instance type. So maybe we want T3 larges. So I just type T3. It's going to do an auto type ahead here, and I can look through. Here's my different T3 options. So there's T3 large. And my count. I'm actually going to go ahead and build 2 of these. And the reason I'm going to do 2 is I'm going to focus on one of them over the next couple episodes and make changes on one. But I'm going to ignore the other. And then a few episodes down the road, we'll talk about our drift service, and we'll do a comparison to this one where we've been making changes and patching versus this one that's been untouched since it was built. So that's why I'm going to do 2. I'll click the next button. If you need to add an SSH key, you can do that. Enter your name and put in a public key. I've already got an SSH key, so I'm going to select my desktop that I'm currently working on. That SSH key is already there. Click next, and now we're going to review. I'm creating this information, count of 2, and click launch. So that's all there is to this. We've created an image. We've started the launch process, and when those systems are initialized and ready, there's my SSH commands that I can go ahead in and access those hosts. I'm going to click over to that AWS environment real quick. Let me hit refresh. We can see now that I've now got 15 instances. So we are initializing 2 T3 largest. You can see them listed right here. So we'll give this a minute or 2 for these to initialize and get ready to go. Eric, did that seem pretty easy?
It seems easy enough that even I could do it.
All right. As we go into this, I'm going to close this view, and I'm going to go into my inventory. So I'm going to click on systems here. I probably won't see these listed yet because they're still initializing. But as part of that whole process that we went through with the sources page, we had activation turn on. So as part of this initialization, we're going to see this host go in and register itself to Subscription Manager as well as to Insights. And we do that using RHC with this particular version of RHEL.
So while those continue to initialize, had a question come in from William, who asks if this process supports dynamic name tags.
I honestly don't know the answer to that. So since Terry's on the chat, he might be able to chime in. I do leverage tags in my environment as part of my launch template, but I'm not sure if it's got full support for those dynamic tags.
And that's why we have experts like Terry hanging around. Oh, Terry's going to check on that. So if we don't get an answer back in the next 11 minutes, basically, we'll make sure to put the answer to that question in the comments below. Which, while those are initializing, there's a great chance to point out that we've got a YouTube playlist for the mini series. We've got 3 image builder labs, one of which will be linked in the show notes below. It is specific to the image builder service. Those labs are free to try. You just spin up a temporary environment, run through some commands and some explanations, Katacoda style, and learn a little bit about image builder. So you can try that out for yourself. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you make sure to get all the new content, and like this episode so other folks just like you can track it down.
So while we wait another minute or so, just want to recap what we've done so far. We went in and we created a source. In my case, I created an AWS source that has it so that we can enable some of the features like this auto registration, like the ability to launch the images directly in the cloud provider. Again, my example was AWS, but you could have used Azure, Google, Oracle, whatever cloud provider that you're using. Then we created that system. We launched it. So we can see that it is currently initializing in AWS right now. Should be available to use here anytime now. And in a moment, we're going to see this here in the inventory. So looks like it has just launched.
Hey, well timed.
So 2244. Let me see this guy. So there's 244. I'm going to click on this one right here. I should go in. Normally, I'd go in and I'd change the host name, or I'd use dynamic naming tags to name this the way I want to. For the purposes of this mini series, I'm going to go ahead and name this one DUR-miniseries 01. So this just gives me a friendly name that I can look at. If I had set up Ansible to understand this host name as well, I could change the Ansible host name, and any playbooks that I create within Insights could use this short name also. But now you'll see under the systems page, this is just changed. DUR miniseries 01. That was 2244. And I'm going to go back to my list of instances here real quick. That's 2244. And we'll make this guy 2149, which is I'm just double verifying my IP addresses here. All right, so we're going to do the same thing here. Yep. This is going to be 02. So for the next few episodes, I'm going to focus on 01. I'm not going to make a whole lot of changes on 02, but we did create two systems. They are going to be both here available for us to use, and we'll be checking back in on them in future episodes. So created a source, created an activation key, created an image, launched an image, and now we've got two new systems that are available and ready to use. So following that up, next week, we're going to take these images and we're going to patch them. One note I want to make, we just spun up the latest RHEL 8 version. So inside of Insights, as far as things like vulnerabilities and patches, I don't expect to see a ton of stuff, but there's still plenty for us to do. So we are going to look in some future episodes as well at some older kind of crusty systems that have been sitting around for a while and do comparisons of what you might see with a brand new system that we just created versus one that's maybe been sitting in a corner running a workload for a while.
Awesome. Yeah, it's you can tell we're coming towards the end of summer. Folks are out of the office right now. So we didn't have a lot of activity in chat. Looks like Terry's followed up with our engineering teams who are currently wrapping up their day. So he promised to respond to the naming tag, dynamic naming tag question in the comments. So check that out. Also check out the show notes. Within about 30 minutes or so of the end of the live stream, I add additional resources and commentary into the show notes. Other than that, John, any thoughts? Anything you want to close with?
I think that's it. This seemed really simple, and guess what? That's the goal. This should seem really simple. But we did a fairly complicated thing here in 23 minutes ish.
I think it's important to think about how far we've come. We went from what we did, or we showed what we did today, but what all is that replacing? You're looking at things like Cloud Init, Kickstart, different boot networks, copying ISOs and VMDKs all over the place. Or one of my favorites was back in the day when I was a sysadmin with a physical data center, was taking 3 or 4 jump drives with the ISO on it and sticking them into 3 or 4 identical servers and running through the exact same graphical wizard over and over and over again.
You had jump drives? Mine looked like a 3D printed save image file, Good old floppy disks. So yeah.
At the start of my career, they were CDs, not DVDs, but CDs.
Norton Ghost was a good friend of mine back in those days.
Yes, that was my first my first job as a systems administrator was actually Windows desktops, but I think it was Semantic Ghost at the time, but it's changed hands a few times. But yeah, so going from that to Image Builder, and then we could get the Ansible guys on later to do like an Ansible automation platform mini series as well. But just think about taking what we did with Image Builder and Insights, and then hand that off to the automation platform that comes that's part of the Ansible suite, and just further automating a lot of the stuff we're going to see. There's just so many possibilities.
To that point, I really should highlight that we've shown the wizard, like we've shown the UI here and wizards and all this stuff, but everything we're showing is completely backed by APIs. So there's a full Image Builder API, all the Insight services have full APIs. So yeah, we're showing you the UI, but you can automate it. You can automate all of this stuff.
Yep. Yeah, it's fantastic, and I fully expect when I have some time this fall to set up some kind of scripting to call those APIs on a weekly basis or something, because I like you, John. I do a number of demos and write blogs and that kind of thing, and it's nice to be able to just spin up a vanilla image with all of my customizations already built into it, deploy it, do what I need to, and then destroy it without having to then go in, create a user, upload SSH keys, run patches. Just be nice to be able to use those APIs to constantly have an up to date image.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. All right, so you apparently did such an amazing job that there's no questions in chat, and we are coming up on the bottom of the hour. So I don't know anyone who will complain about a sub 30-minute episode. So with that said, we'll wrap up here. As John mentioned, we'll be talking about patch deployment next week, same time, same channel. And also join us on Friday. Scott McBrien and myself will be live on Into the Terminal to talk about Flatpak based applications. And then next week, we've got a very exciting episode of Red Hat Enterprise Linux Presents. I guess now I could say our flagship series, because we have 2 series and a mini series now. We're rocking and rolling here. So join us next week for Red Hat Enterprise Linux Presents, where Brian Smith and myself will be talking about getting certified with Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So if you're considering your RHCSA, your RHCE, any of those, anything in that line of RHEL certifications, you'll definitely want to catch next week's episode. But until then, on behalf of my guest, Mr. John Spinks, and co-host. It's a mini series. So on behalf of my co-host, Mr. John Spinks, myself, Eric the IT Guy Hendricks, and the entire RHEL and Insights teams, thank you all for joining us live. Look forward to catching you in a future episode. And until then, we will see you next time.